Two info whores. In a world where everyone has a compass pointed to their own personal Emerald City, these two guys know every Emerald City has a man behind a curtain, so they wander aimlessly from city to city. But not all who wander are lost.
Hey, welcome to the podcast, everybody. I'm Bear.
And I'm Ham. And today we're going to be talking about a great discussion point, which is climate change. So, Bear, have you done any research on this one?
I know a little bit about it, actually, probably more than a little bit. But to me, climate change is probably less to do with us having an effect on the environment and more about funneling money in a certain direction.
Amen to that one. I completely concur. Okay, we can end the podcast now. No, I'm just kidding.
Discussion over.
Wow.
Problems.
We agree. We're done. No, yeah, it's absolutely a fund-driven marketing campaign. And I say a marketing campaign because it's like, I just think it's fucking ridiculous. I mean, think about it. 100 out of, or what is it? 98% of all scientists agree climate change is real. So you're telling me that archaeologists who are in that 100 or 99% of scientists agree? So you're telling me that they took every single climate scientist and then asked them their opinion given the facts, right?
Well, all of these climate scientists or meteorologists
Exactly.
went to a college.
Right.
And when they went to that college, they were taught what to believe.
Oh, furthermore, and I completely agree.
So of course they're going to concur with it.
Right. But that's not the real truth.
Because they were told to.
Right. But that's not the real truth, though. We both know that because here's one of the things that I think about, right? For one, they're trying to get a huge mass of people to sign off on this as its reality.
Sign off on what?
On the
climate change,
right? But they're saying that it's not just climate scientists. It's every scientist, right? Because I don't think that there's 100% of fucking climate scientists. And there's a difference between a meteorologist and a scientist. You know what I mean? It's not really a scientific field. It is a scientific field. Meteorology is a real field. I'm just saying it's not the same as working in a lab. You know what I mean? You're actually out there in the field. You're taking samples. You're doing all kinds of stuff. But this is my problem.
Well, earlier in the 1900s, they were screaming about how it was about to be an ice age.
Exactly.
And now it's about to be a scorching desert everywhere.
Right. And the other issue I have with this is, Barry, how do these scientists prove what they want to prove or prove through factual evidence? How do they generate that money to do all this research?
If you're going to test for something if you're just asking scientists if global warming's real, then you're just asking a person called a scientist their opinion. If you're going to cite tests, and say it's real because of this, not just because these guys said it is, but because we did this test involving this thing with these factors and it came back this way, so that's what makes us believe that it's actually changing.
Right.
And depending on I'd have to know a lot about the test to know whether or not I thought it was legitimate enough.
Now here, okay, and I completely understand what you're saying, but I think maybe you misunderstood my question. It's not a matter of if somebody, and I'm not trying to piss on these individuals that signed off on it, because what they're doing is they're they're taking someone else's word that they did empirical science to figure out whether these statistics and this data that they have is correct, and it shows in the right direction. So pretty much all they do is observe and read and research what these guys did in their experimentation and their data, and then they form an opinion, and either it's conclusive or it's inconclusive, right? They either agree that it's happening or they don't, right? My issue is this: who is paying for these fucking tests to be done, and where is that money coming from? That is the main thing. If you can get back to the research of how they're coming to these conclusions, the actual test data, all the information that is gathered from these satellites, these thermostats that are out in the middle of the ocean that tell the wave heights and the heat, the temperature of the water. Where are they getting all of that information? Well, they're getting it from these people that are conducting these tests. And this is experimentation. Well, they've been found to be fucking lying, flat out lying about shit. And they've been brought before Congress and saying, you're manipulating the results of these tests so that it is favorable to your argument. I mean, that's like if I have a guy that's if you're on trial for murder and I go to your house and plant evidence, well, I'm pretty much making the judgment that's going to fall upon you because I'm influencing that decision and making it easier for people to believe it. And I think that's what they've done. I think they completely taken the science out of that process because they're trying to push a narrative. And that narrative is, we have to prove that people are the direct result of why we have climate change, and it's not just a natural occurring phenomenon. And as you stated, the early 1900s, this was stated in multiple almanacs, newspapers, scientific journals, that there was going to be an ice age. And in the 1970s, they were still fucking saying the same thing. They weren't talking about greenhouse gases and, CO2 levels and emission standards being, not tight enough because it's emitting too much CO2 into the atmosphere. They never said anything about that. In fact, it was the reverse. Now, let me bring this up to you, Barry.
Yeah.
Which one would you say is better? If you were to increase CO2 gases, those are the greenhouse gases, what is it going to do to the earth? It's going to warm the earth, correct? And I'm talking on a massive scale, correct? That's what CO2 gases do. They trap the heat.
Yeah.
Okay. Which one would be better?
They essentially create, a glass ceiling like a greenhouse. And so supposedly the sun's rays, when they bounce off of the earth and go back out into outer space,
right?
The CO2 reflects the rays back into the earth again,
which causes it to heat.
And then they don't get out, so it heats everything more.
Okay, now let's look at this. Which one would be better to put into the atmosphere? Zero CO2 or CO2? And here's my argument with that. Humans are warm-blooded creatures. We're mammals. We can't tolerate. We have no blubber. Okay, we're not fucking, sperm whales. We have no coat of fur. So cold is not very indicative of humans, the human species. We don't do good in the cold. Do we do good in warmer temperatures? Abso-fucking-lutely. So in essence,
you can sweat, but there's a limit to where you're not going to be able to do much.
Right, but you're talking about the amount of CO2. If it's gone up a half of a percent over the span of from the time of the Industrial Revolution to now, a half a fucking percent. Not a 1.0, but a 0.5, a half a percent. If it took that long, we're talking hundreds of years before it's going to get to the point where it would affect us. So
No. Well, think about it. This 0.5%. So you're talking about uh well, oh Jesus Christ. 0.5% of a degree.
yeah, that's all it's gone up.
So if a degree is 1.0,
Right.
then this would be
One-
0.0005.
Exactly. So that
Yeah,
you're talking almost
that's negligible.
400 years. You're at possibly at a degree. Possibly.
Yeah,
also,
at 100 years.
yeah, you also have to take into consideration that there are, in I think the argument boils down to this. It's almost like if
I think the temperature on the Earth can fluctuate on its own,
Absolutely.
regardless of humans.
Absolutely, and I'll give you a perfect example. If there's a solar flare, which happens, it increases the overall heat of the Earth.
Well, you know what there's they always claimed that volcanoes could cause another ice age.
Possibly.
Is that volcano in Hawaii still going off?
Oh, it's still going off, and it's not just there.
Well, there's other places.
There's other places, and there's fissures that are cracking open all over the place. And what it is that's the ring of fire. So
just recently?
This has been going on for months now. They've been opening up all over.
Oh wow, that's kind of cool.
And what it is the tectonic plates are shifting, and that is causing there to be new what they call, like, they're almost like arteries of lava to pressurize, and then they blow up, and then they just keep spewing out until those tectonic plates move again, and it can solidify and slow down the lava flow. But I mean, that's a crazy situation. Yes, if you have an explosion, not to the more of what you're having a problem with in Hawaii is the gas and the you don't really have a classic flow like you do with a huge eruption. This has been like a spewing eruption, slowly, letting the pressure out of the valve, versus when you're talking about like a Mount St. Helens, if it was a bigger volcano, the plastic flow that comes off of that thing is superheated gas. Well, it pretty much will burn, and it has acid and corrosive and also deadly chemicals in it. Then you have the ash layer that forms in the upper layers of our atmosphere, which blocks out the sun. So if you had 2 or 3 of these massive Yellowstone National Park size, volcanoes go off simultaneously or in quick succession of each other, yeah, you're talking an ice age. So
keep going.
It's legit. I mean, it's scary, and that's a natural we're not causing the tectonic plates to shift. That has nothing to do with humankind. Now, if you set off, now this is something, I don't know if you know this, Bear, or not, but if you set off a nuke, it will cause a aftershock after the percussion of the actual nuke, that as it's ringing out. No, nukes are real. As it rings out, you can literally cause an earthquake because of the aftershock of that nuke. And that's bad. That's really bad. So I'm glad we're not testing nuclear weapons anymore out in Nevada.
Yeah. Have you heard of the Pacific Garbage Patch?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Have you seen any pictures of it?
Yes. Yes.
Because I was told about it yesterday, and I was just trying to find pictures of it, but I can't find any pictures of it.
I've seen pictures of it. I've even seen a documentary.
Yeah, but I'm trying to find pictures of it, and when I type it into Google, I can't find pictures of the actual patch. Like, it's supposed to be twice the size of Texas.
Yeah, but I don't think it's at I don't think it's in the Pacific. I don't know what water, what sea or ocean it's in. I don't remember it being in the Pacific. It might be.
Well, it's called the Great Pacific Garbage
It's
Patch.
pretty much an eddy, right? There's two different currents going two different ways, and it literally just sucks all the
I found
plastic.
a picture of it.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's.
Or I found a picture of a pretty bad garbage patch.
Yeah,
It's not as big as what they're talking about, at least from what I can tell. I don't know how bad it is, because they're saying the patch is like twice the size of Texas.
I don't think it's that big, really. That would show up on satellite images. Are you kidding
if it
me?
was that big, you'd be able to see it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe what they're saying is if you put all of the garbage that's there spread out together, it would form something the size of Texas. I think that's a little over exaggerated. I don't know though.
Did they push all this stuff together and see how big it actually was?
I don't know.
Or is it just a hypothesis?
Probably just a hypothesis. I don't know if it's the truth. I know it does exist. It happens all the time. There are shipping containers that wreck. And
well, I'm not saying there's no garbage in the ocean. I'm just saying twice the size of Texas is a little out there.
It's massive. Yeah, I don't know if that's the actual size. That sounds very exaggerated in my opinion.
Yeah, and the only thing I can find are like images. I don't see like the only images that I see of like a trash pile floating in the ocean. They're really close, and it looks like it would be something in a bay. Like, say you had a flood, and it washed a bunch of stuff out of the dump across this area,
Yeah.
and now you have to travel through that area in a boat. So you're paddling around through all this garbage that just got washed out of a dump. Like that's kind of what the scenario looks like. It doesn't look as massive as two states of Texas.
Well, let's put it this way. You ought to look up, I think they call it Horse Bay. Horse, Horse, right? It's in New York, and it's a bay. And it got its name from, in the 1800s, they had a horse pretty much glue factory where they took horses and killed them, or horses.
Bottles all over the shore.
That is from the 1800s, brother. That hasn't been polluted in. That's how long that stuff, that's how much mass amount of glass there is. And it's been there since the 1800s. There was a dump there. And over time, the water eroded and it started exposing that glass. And now that glass is literally everywhere on that bay. I mean, for miles. And I mean, you could see it. You don't even see the dirt. You see fucking glass. So the shoreline has been disappearing in the waters as the water washes it away. Yeah, it was a dump. The tides and the erosion that happens from tides going up and going down and water levels changing over the years has caused that water to erode where the dump was. And so that glass is slowly but surely
really close to the ocean. That was horrible. Well,
I don't know how much the water has changed. I mean, look, I will admit that water levels are rising. But at the same time, though, they're saying that the Antarctic ice sheets are getting bigger. They are slowly getting smaller, but they're also getting bigger too. So it's kind of contradictory, but I think that the whole lie of we're causing global warming is stupid. And I think that if you were to sit here and try to feed that to somebody, that doesn't have an education, that doesn't, look into things, then they would probably be prone to believe it. But, the fact that there were people that were paid to lie and put out false data, scientists, it makes me wonder. I mean, it kind of it makes a distrust between you and the person who's supposed to be providing you true evidence, unrefuted, unbiased evidence, and that's not the case. However, there are changes in the water level. There are changes in the water temperature across our oceans because it's a huge giant piece of our of our world, of our Earth, is covered by water. So it's going to be the first thing that heats up, I would imagine.
I think that the whole garbage thing in the water and like all the water problems that they're going to complain about is probably going to lead to a water tax eventually. Like, hopefully we won't see it, but it's coming.
Well, the most precious
It's
material,
in the works.
the most precious material on the face of the earth is water.
Yeah.
It's more precious than anything else. You take away water, there is no civilization. There's no nothing. You can go back and look at where they've had scarcities. Without water, you can't drink. Without water, you can't, water your plants and your vegetables and your harvest. So I mean, if you cut that water supply out and you look at places that have contaminated water sources, like and over in Africa and shit, I mean, but it kind of goes even deeper than that. It almost makes you think that it's almost a way for them to control the population. I mean, think about it. You control the water, you control the population, and furthermore, if you control the water, you can put in that water whatever you want, like they do with fluoride. There's no getting around the fact that they dose the shit out of your water that comes out of your tap at your city that you live in, that there is a crap ton of fluoride in that water and other deposits that shouldn't be there. Calcium, high levels of calcium. They take all the sulfur out of the water because they say that destroys your teeth. I know tons of people that lived on a well and had sulfur in their water, and you could taste it, so it wasn't being removed, and their teeth are fine. I mean, they don't have super jacked
I like
teeth.
my well water. Honestly, the sulfur smell, like, I'm used to it.
Right.
But the sulfur smell in mine isn't real bad, but it's there.
But I mean, it's cleaner than if you were to get a bottle of water, in my opinion, because it's being filtrated.
Yeah, because bottled water is just city water.
It's tap water. I mean, if you test the alkaline, I don't know how you would say that. The alkalinity of water from tap, it's not alkaline. It's not alkaline. It's acidic. But yet, if you were to probably test yours, yeah. If you were to test all of the, they're trying to take water that's been shit and pissed in. They separate the water that is, from the waste, and then they put all these chemicals in it to try to treat it as fast as possible. I mean, if you've ever looked at a water treatment facility, the turnaround for that water actually going through a filtration system is probably a couple days. That's it. Somebody shit and pissed in that water.
Well, astronauts like to drink their own pee. What do you think? You're better than an astronaut? You don't deserve to have to drink your own pee?
It's a completely different system, though. It's a completely different system. It's a salinity system, which they literally take the water and it evaporates. It gets sucked into vacuum lines. It condensates, and then from that condensation, it's cooled down and it turns back into water. So it's literally been completely purified. Yeah, but I mean, actually, it's a better system than what we're using now. I mean, when you get water out of your tap, if you live in the city, you're drinking somebody else's piss water.
I would like to see them show that whole system off.
Well, I would too. I think it'd be interesting. I mean, think about it. Yeah. If you had the ability to do that, now, of course, it's a controlled, pressurized environment, but I mean, if you could do it on a small scale, you could hypothetically give people water to people where all they have to do is pull it out of the air.
They've done it on the International Space Station. That thing's not that big.
No. And there's water vapor in the air. No matter where you live, there's some water
Have
vapor.
those at their house.
I would. If I had that kind of money, I would. Yeah.
They should release that information.
They should. Okay, let's get back to the topic of global warming or global warming. That's another thing. They used to call it global warming. They figured out that trend was not working because it didn't follow their prescribed effects of what global warming was and what was going to come out of it. So they changed it to climate change, which is such a vast, stupid explanation for.
Yeah, well, initially, if you say it's freezing and then you say it's burning up, and both times you're wrong, you're just going to have to go somewhere in the middle and be like, climate change.
Exactly. And climate change is the biggest.
We don't know what's happening, but something's happening and it's bad and it's your fault.
It's your fucking fault, right? So you need to pay me a tax for your cows farting out in the field.
Your existence.
Yeah, because they're
that.
putting methane into the air. Guess what? Methane, it's in the ground. It seeps out. What are they going to do? Tax the ground? Shit. On the lake that I grew up, Lake Merriam, right? You could walk around, and as you're walking around, you would see bubbles flying up out of the water, right? And all it was is there's decomposition of plant material, and it just leaches off fucking methane. So underneath that thing is thousands and thousands of square feet of fucking nothing but methane, and it's leaking out on its own accord. And guess what? There ain't nothing you can do to control that. That happens. When you kill something, it leaks methane because it's part of the process of something decomposing. But so they give us this explanation that they want to find better sources for energy, right? Water, wind, hydro, solar. You know what the problem with that is, Bear?
Oh, geothermal.
Geothermal is about the only one that I could say is honestly a good solution. But it only really works in a place where you can get down deep enough. In Florida, you can't do geothermal because we have such a high water table.
Yeah.
So is that going to cure everybody's problem for energy resources? No, not really. But I'm talking about like replacing fossil fuel, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. And I'll break it down. This is fucking hilarious. We're going to put up wind turbines, right? They're going to produce energy anywhere. I'm just saying I'm the representative of
theoretically
alternative power sources and energy sources, okay? So, I'm going to put up wind turbines and I'm going to generate power, clean power. Well, guess what, Bear? That's a great idea. I'm going to put up solar panels. It's the healthiest, most cleanest way of making energy. What's the problem there? Just tell me.
A lot?
No? What are you using? What materials are you using to make that stuff?
Oh, copper.
Steel.
Yeah.
Polymers.
What else is in a solar panel? What's the most precious metal in a solar panel?
Sometimes they have gold as a conductor, maybe platinum. But I mean, on the cheap, you're talking mostly like copper and some silica because it needs to have that glass, right? But here's the problem, right? Every fucking thing that they have just said to be an alternative energy source has to come from fossil fuels. Has to. There's no other way around it. You want to make steel? How do you make steel? You have to dig it out of the ground. Raw ore. Okay?
Yeah.
You're going to do that by hand.
And you're going to burn gas to get to that raw ore.
Then when you get that raw ore, how do you get it down to its purest form? By cooking the shit out of it and turning it into molten steel or molten iron, whatever. How do you get that? You have to burn. It's the triangle of fucking how fire works. It's the fire triangle. You have to have fuel, oxygen, and you have to have a ignition source, right? Without one of those, you don't have fucking steel. Same thing with the idea of using a polymer in solar panels or in all of this other stuff. Plastic is a byproduct of fossil fuels. It's a byproduct.
Yeah.
You can't make plastic without digging in the fucking ground, getting a fossil fuel, and processing it. That's how you get diesel that runs the big giant trucks that transfers, and dumps the loads of dirt for it to be sifted and, find the phosphate they're looking for, or whatever it is that they're trying to find. Silver, gold, platinum, whatever. So the way to get to the solution is you have to go through the problem. But the problem is you have to have the problem to get to the solution. So it's just really annoying. It's really annoying.
Kind of like trying to fix something. If there's say your air conditioner breaks and I come out and look at it and it's working fine while I'm there, I don't know what the hell's wrong with it. Mm-hmm. There's no way to tell because it works fine. I can't find a fault there.
Yeah. So anyways, I'll bring up this and we'll bring it to an end here. We'll have to give this one another go, but I think it's hilarious how they take the pictures of the polar bears. Polar bears are drowning at alarming rates. They don't have any habitat, so they're having to swim, and they can't swim for very long before they die in freezing cold waters. That is the... Have you ever seen a fucking polar bear in person? Like
not in person.
At SeaWorld or whatever?
Maybe when I was really little.
Okay. Underneath that white fur is black fur. So it's white at the tips for about 4 or 5 inches, but their skin is black, and at the base of the hair is all black. A polar bear, if he does not get in the water, will die of overheating. That's how well they are insulated. They eat seals, which have high contents of fucking flubber or blubber. I said flubber like a motherfucker. They have high concentrations of blubber, and they store so much weight on them, and they have so much fat on them that they have to get in the water so they don't overheat. Nobody fucking hears that. They can swim really fucking far. And why are they swimming from one fucking iceberg to the other? What are they hunting? Fucking seals. Seals come up in little holes, and they have breathe holes. So they stay underneath the glacier, and they swim around and fuck off and do whatever they're doing, and then they come up. Right? And then when they run out of breath, they come up to their breathe hole. Well, that's where the fucking goddamn smart-ass fucking polar bears are. And they sit there and will wait until one of those seals comes up to breathe. Well, guess what? Seals are constantly moving. So they have to get off of one to go to the other so that they can have a food source. It's so... I mean, come on. Can you tell me that that's... And where did I learn this from? SeaWorld. Fucking SeaWorld. That's another one that really makes me mad, is this whole stupid thing about fucking orcas. Let me tell you something. I love orcas. I want to protect them, but they're fucking assholes. They're fucking assholes, dude. There's a video right now that's going viral. I just seen it on Facebook. It's a fucking... Here's the stingray, right? Just a swimming along, just minding his own. Here comes a fucking orca. The orca flips upside down and fucking kicks the shit out of that goddamn fucking... That stingray. And I think it killed it. I think it hit it so fucking hard it killed it.
Damn.
Seals are... orcas are not nice, dude. They're fucking assholes. They hunt fucking sharks and just kill them for no reason. They kill all kinds of stuff just because they're like, I'm a fucking orca. I'm a fucking douchebag. I'm going to fucking kill you. And then I'm going to let you rot and die. For no reason. Like, I've seen them pick up a fucking bottlenose dolphin and fling it 15 feet in the air. For no fucking reason other. They didn't eat it. They just wanted to kill it. I consider them to be like teenagers in a group, thugs in a group. They ride around in a pod, and they're like, hey, you, fuck you, dude. Come over here. I'm going to kick you in the fucking teeth. Hey, man, fuck off. I don't want anything to do with you. Hey, Bobby, get him. Hey, and they're just beating the shit out of him, you know? Hey, fucking cut his head off. Yeah, fuck you. And they just ride the fuck off. I'm sorry. I don't really feel bad for that fucking animal. They're a fucking dick. I mean, yeah, we want to protect them. I don't want people hunting them. But at the same time, dude, conservation is, you have to have something in captivity to do conservation, to learn about it. I mean, we've learned a fuck ton from ducks from hunting them, deer from hunting them. Think about it. You're out there fucking watching them. You take them home, you cut them open, you learn their insides. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to be a sick, sadistic son of a bitch, but I'm just saying, you know, conservation, you have to take something to conserve it.
I wonder what orcas taste like.
Probably pretty good, I imagine. I mean, there's still, dude, there are still Inuit tribes in Alaska that have the ability to hunt whales. And I'm not talking about them. I'm talking like humpbacks and shit like that. They still hunt them to this day. Now, they're not allowed to just go out and fucking just kill as many as they want, and that's never how they did it. Their village respects them, and, you know, they see them as a creature of Mother Earth, so they don't want to do that, and they respect their soul. And it has a huge tradition and meaning in their religion and their traditions. So, I mean, they respect the animal, but they hunt, and it takes them literally a couple... Like, it can almost last them, one whale can almost last them a year, an entire village a year from harvesting it.
Dang.
It's impressive.
Yeah, that's not bad.
No, and they catch them with nets.
That sounds acceptable.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, native people are different. Native people are different, dude.
Yeah.
They didn't fucking rape the shit out of resources. I mean, they took from the land what the land needed. There are accounts, though, of Plains Indians pillaging the fuck out of buffalo. But the reason they did that was because the buffalo would get so big and bad, and the population would grow where they couldn't control it. Like, they like to have a culling of the herd. They like to clean it out, because if not, it got too big, and then other animals suffered because they were eating up too much, you know, food or hogging all the resources for themselves. So they did fucking run them off edges of cliffs like fucking they showed in Dances with Wolves. They would. That was a part of the culling of the herd. I mean, but they didn't just dump them. I mean, they actually used the resources off them. But I mean, at the same time, they have to, they're stewards of their land, so they had to take care of them.
Yeah.
But anywho. All right, guys, that's probably going to do it for us tonight. I'm tired. He's tired. My ass hurts from sitting in this uncomfortable chair, but we'll catch up in the next one, and we'll see you guys on the next Info Whores.